I want to look at the mental problem, and I'm not talking necessarily about what we would call severe cases where people need to be hospitalized or even cases where people need to be medicated. I'm interested in looking at cases where people are functioning and they're living a life, but nevertheless they are struggling and, many cases struggling very badly, and they're hiding the problem and not wanting to show other people how badly they're struggling. And just so you understand what I'm talking about here, I'll list a few examples of the kind of mental problems that people are struggling with. People struggling with sleeping disorders and nightmares and anxiety, and of course, depression, and also, of course, drug problems and other addiction problems and obsessions and anger and relationship problems and bipolar issues and many, many other ways that people are struggling mentally. So, what about this? Revelation 12, verse 9 says that Satan deceives the whole world. Satan deceives the whole world. That means that this deception, this problem is universal. In Genesis chapter 3, Satan led mankind to separate from God's spirit, which was mankind's life. We see the creation of man in Genesis chapter 2, and it was like this. God formed man, formed from dust of the ground a human being, and then God breathed into that human being's nostrils the breath of life, God's spirit, and the man became a living soul. Man has life with God's spirit. Without God's spirit, man has no life. Man is not just flesh and blood and bones. Man is a spiritual vessel. And in Genesis chapter 3, Satan led man to be separated from God's spirit. And so in that vacuum came Satan's spirit. And this is described in Ephesians 2, 1 to 3, and John 8, verse 44. And this is not just Adam and Eve, this is everyone, because everyone came from Adam and Eve, the first two humans. And they surely died in the day that they left God's word. Adam and Eve could procreate, which they did, but they could never, no one could ever produce the spiritual life that God had originally given to mankind. And so it's a universal problem. Romans 3, verse 23 says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Everyone is inside of this problem. And when you look at Genesis chapter 3, you can see that mankind's mental problems arise immediately upon this separation from God's Spirit, because man is immediately oppressed. It's Genesis 3, verse 7. Man is oppressed and he's trying to take actions to make things comfortable, make things tolerable for him. And then verse 8, Genesis 3, verse 8, man is nervous and he's anxious and trying to hide from God. He's mentally afflicted. And verse 10, Genesis 3, verse 10, man is afraid. And then we see in verses 12 and 13 that man and woman are in this uncomfortable state and they're blaming others. We see the woman is blaming the serpent for deceiving her. And we see the man is blaming the woman and even blaming God. People are in this kind of oppressed, uncomfortable life. And so it must be somebody else's fault. And it's relationship problem and anger, frustration. And it's a mental problem because mankind is inside of a curse. It's Genesis 3, verses 16 to 20. Satan is cursed above everything else that God created. Genesis 3, verse 14. And man is inside of this, inside of Satan's spirit. And so man's living this cursed existence where he cannot be comfortable. He cannot find rest. And it describes how man will struggle and suffer and die. And this is mankind's existence. And it goes down the family line. It goes down to the posterity, which we can see, of course, in Genesis chapter 4. It came down to Cain, and Cain was suffering mentally and frustrated, and he did not give the blood sacrifice. And so he was remaining inside of this cursed existence, and he was frustrated to the point where he committed murder. Exodus 20, verses 4 and 5 says that this problem goes down the family line to the third and fourth generation. Your problem, your spiritual problem, will carry on down the family line. Satan deceives the whole world. But as soon as man became separated, God gave the gospel. It's Genesis 3, verse 15. God spoke the gospel, and he spoke to the serpent, and he said, the seed of the woman will crush the head of the serpent. It is the seed of the woman, the one who is not Adam's seed, not any man's seed. No, it will be the seed of the woman. It is the virgin birth, the one that did not come from this problem. It is the Christ. And this Christ that breaks Satan's authority over you. It's 1 John 3, verse 8. The reason the Son of God was manifest is to destroy the works of the devil, give you freedom from this oppression. And this is where your healing begins. It's the seed of the woman who has crushed the head of the serpent. Matthew 11, verse 28, Jesus said, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You can finally rest mentally when you come into Jesus Christ, restoring that breath of life, God's Spirit that was originally given to mankind. This is rest, mental rest and mental healing. And this is what the mental issue is all about.